Thank you so much. So, as I mentioned, let's wait for 5 minutes so that people can come and join in. In the meanwhile, yeah, let's just have a talk. So, where are you guys from? What you guys are doing? What you guys are pursuing? Yeah, so either you can, I will prefer it if you guys can just unmute yourself and introduce yourself. Otherwise, if you're not comfortable, you can also always drop things in the chat box. So I myself I am Himanshi Singh. I am from IIT Kanpur and I'm a PhD candidate here. I am working on, like, the broad area will be computational structural biology. So I work with proteins and I try to understand how they are transporting material with the help of simulations. Okay, so yeah, so you guys can go ahead and introduce yourself either one by one, or if you want, I can pick you guys up. Whatever is like safe and easy for you guys to do. And it will be a very interactive session. So there is no what to say formal things that things have to be done in this particular way. It is just this particular way works best for me, and throughout the years many students have also told me that they like this approach. So it's, yeah, I'm always up for a change, and we can always change the pace of lectures and questions and explanations and all those things depending upon what you guys want. Okay, so yep, anyone wanna initiate the introduction? Anyone can just unmute and just tell me about themselves. You guys are shy. Okay. Yeah, hi. Thank you so much. Yeah, yeah, sure. Go ahead. So, you opted this course just for your own understanding, or you have some credit requirements? Yeah, 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 sure. Oh, great. Good to have you here, Kaveri. Anyone next can go ahead. It is just a basic introduction, guys. Just your name, what you are pursuing, from where you are, all those basic things. This will also help me in curating my lectures as well. So, for example, as I have told you about myself that I am pursuing PhD. So, for me, if I like, we can take topics from PhD perspective as well as UG perspective as well as people who are doing their masters, right? So if suppose majority of the people here are from masters background, then we can skip some basic details. But if majority of you guys are from undergrad, then we can delve more into topics. So first lecture is like very basic, which I have planned because I'm not aware of the diversity of the students who might gonna attend the course. So it's pretty basic how we introduce immunology and all that thing, all those things. So if you introduce me, it will actually help you as well as me to uh, like adapt for future lectures. Yeah, sure, please proceed. Okay, and you are from Kolkata itself, Chandrama? Okay, okay. Good to have you here. Thank you. Yeah, hi. Yeah, yeah, you are. Mm-hmm. From? Acha. Okay, okay. And you are from Kolkata itself? Acha. Oh, okay, okay. Thank you, Saya. Good to have you here. Anyone else wanna step up? It's just a basic exercise we do so that we can get to know each other. We can then learn and ask questions. So, is this your first NPTL course for you guys, or you have taken other courses as well? Okay, okay, okay. Oh, nice. So, okay, someone is saying they can't hear me. Janaki, can you hear me? Because I guess majority of the people can hear me. You can log out and join in again if the issue persists. Okay, so I guess it's 5 past our starting time, so we can start our own discussion. So you guys need to confirm me few things. Okay, I'm gonna share my slides. So and you have to tell me whether you can see the slides or not. First thing, and second, whether you can see the slides changing or not. Okay, so these are few technical checks which we have to do. Okay, so can you guys see my slides? Okay, great. Now tell me whether you can see my slides changing. Yes or no? Okay, great. So, okay. So now the formal introduction. Hello everyone. My name is Himanshi Singh and I am a fifth year PhD candidate here at IIT Kanpur. We will be discussing a lot about a very important and very lengthy and very interesting subject called immunology. I'm assuming most of you are from undergrad background, especially biotechnology. So either you guys have had the experience of immunology in your later semesters, or you might have some introduction of immunology, maybe in the coming semester or in the later years of your undergrad. So basically, see, immunology, if we talk from the perspective of level of difficulty, so what we pursue difficulty is as when we don't understand from where things are starting and where things are ending and how they are connected, right? So immunology fits well in this criteria that we are not able to understand because there are a lot of things which are going simultaneously, right? I am hoping that everyone is just nodding their head who have had an experience of immunology in their undergrad. So we will try to start from one point, because see, if things are jumbled we can just pick one point and start learning from there. We might end up somewhere, right? So the basic thing which we might do is, and which gonna help you as well, is to follow the lectures which are there weekly. Okay, do not skip those lectures. If you're coming to attend the live session, it's better to have the experience of these I think Paul wants to say something. Someone is, yes, Paul. Hello, can you hear me? Okay. So, yeah, so overall what I was saying is we will try to start like from book, how the book starts. So books are very beautifully written, right? They'll give you the introduction of topic, they'll give you brief overview of what you might expect in the coming chapters, then you delve into each and every chapter into details, right? So this is one of the best way to learn immunology itself, correct? Because there are multiple things going all around all at the time, at the same time. So it's better to first see what are the components of immunology, first thing. Second, what these components do individually. And third, how these components are connected to each other, right? Because in us we can't say, right, that first the innate immunity is working, then adaptive won't be working, and if adaptive immunity is working, then innate immunity is not working, correct? So right now if I'm speaking to you, you guys are seeing as well as hearing as well as understanding. But when we read or study physiology, we read these topics as separate topics, right? We'll see the systems as a separate chapters or separate topics, but it doesn't mean that they are separate from each other. It's our just learning deficiency that we can't understand if we talk about everything all at once. Okay, so starting with what exactly is the immunology or the immunity. Okay, so let me have so most of you already have a brief idea about what immunology is, what immunity is, what is innate immunity, what is adaptive immunity, all these things. Even if you are studying this subject for the very first time, so in the lectures of the week 1 lectures, these things were introduced in a very well versed way. Okay, so what exactly is immunity? So the term immunity, okay, people are using, yeah. So the term immunity usually refers to protection against infectious pathogens. So here a question might arise: what are infectious pathogens, or what are pathogens in general? Okay, so pathogen is any organism, any microorganism which is causing harm, effect, or ill effect to you. All the microbes are not causing issues to you, right? So they are good gut microbiota, good bacteria, right? They are also microorganisms, but why we are not calling them pathogens? Because they are not causing any ill effect to us. So when microorganisms causes ill effect or infection or disease or any sort of reaction of our normal body against something, right, it is called infection. And when our body protect us against that process is called immunity. Okay, so this term we have heard a lot in the last few years because of the COVID-19, right? Those who have good immunity, they were able to recover better. Those who had some comorbidities like blood pressure, sugar, thyroid, those things, that weakens their overall recovery period. In a way, it was that they were low in their immunity. Okay, however, reactions to some non-infectious substances, including harmless environmental molecules, tumors, and even one's own molecules, are also considered forms of immunity. So what will be included in this? It will be allergy, tumor immunity, and autoimmunity. Which means, so what this statement is basically saying, that here we talked about infectious pathogens, which means we know the agent is there which is causing reaction or infection in our body. And if our body is able to protect us against such things, we are calling it immunity. But immunity is not a small term. Immunity comprises of those things as well which are non-infectious, such as environmental molecules. So you might have heard some people, they have pollen allergy, right, or asthma, correct? So these are minute environmental particles which lead to allergy in the body or our body is basically reacting against something, not necessarily a pathogen, right? Still it will be called as immunity. Second, tumors. So, do you think the widespread of cancer is reported whenever we have a cancerous cell or a tumor, right? So, even right now, when we are sitting and we are learning new things, our body is fighting against so many things in our body which might lead to tumors. But with God's grace and with our immunity and with our lifestyle choices, with good eating habits, exercise routines, and everything else, including, our body is able to fight such things on a daily basis. The moment we stop taking leverage of our natural things, our body's natural innate ability to counter such things decreases, leading to the imbalance of good immunity and the opposing factors which are challenging the immunity, leading to disease such as cancers or tumors, right? And even one's own molecules are also considered form of immunity. One's own molecule, you guys are very well aware of that, autoimmunity, right? Somehow our body starts to act against our own things. It is like, so for example, um, we have certain tribes all around the world which do not like government, right? Though the government is trying to help them, there might be n number of things, conflicts and all those things, but at the end of the day they are fighting their own country. They are in the country and still they are fighting. So our body, which was supposed to have immunity to fight against things which are external to our body, somehow misbehaves and starts attacking our own body. Okay, so this statement, why this is important, because if we talk immunity in general, we always talk about infection, pathogens, microbes, or this and that, right? But it is not always living organisms or living microorganisms. It can be anything. It can be any small molecule, environmental molecule. It can be your drug component which might ignite some allergic reactions in you, or it can be your own body things which are causing the activation of the immunity against your own system. Okay, so the collection of cells, tissues and molecules that mediate these reactions is called the immune system, and the coordinated response of these cells and molecules to pathogens and other substances makes up an immune response, right? So how beautifully we can connect these dots, right? So what is immunity? It is basically the protection against anything which leads to our body to react against something. So that reaction is the immunity, right? So what are the things that are mediating these reactions of protection? So it can be cells, tissues and the molecules which do this action. It is called immune system. Okay, and when and it is called a system, right? So it is not a single entity, which means there are n number of things which goes in providing you the protection against these elements. So the response which this system elicit is called immune response. Okay, so this is the easiest way we can understand immunology. So what is immunology? It is the study of immunity or our own body defense mechanism, right, at the end of the day. So the importance of immune system in health and disease. So this should not be discussed separately, because as I have mentioned, on daily basis we are fighting so many things. You are also aware that nowadays people wear SPF and sunscreen and all those things a lot, right? Why? Because they are trying to protect themselves from the UV rays of the sun, which causes cancer, like skin cancer. It is reported. It's a well-known fact also, right? So by stating that what is the importance of immune system, this is just a very small list. It is not even scratching the surface of it, but still they are the major roles of an immune system. So what are these roles? First is the defense against infection, right? So how this can be understood if is that deficient immunity results in increased susceptibility to infections, as it was seen in the patients suffering from AIDS. Vaccination boosts immune defense and protects against infections. So, first role of immune system is for defending us against the infections. How we know this? Because in patients who are suffering from AIDS, their immune system is collapsed. It is almost non-existent. So, if you observe those patients, or if you just see their prescriptions, like the drugs and the infections which they are getting on regular basis, is purely because their immune system is not good enough or it is not working. So then you will understand that on daily basis how well our body is protecting us against getting such infections. Okay, and the best example of using our own immunity and our own immune system is in the vaccines. I don't have to put more pressure on this point, right? All of us have witnessed COVID-19 in the past few years. So you know how well vaccines helped in saving people life, as well as making sure that we can move ahead from the epidemic or pandemic in this case, right? So we will see how the vaccination principle basically works in the coming lectures. Okay, second is defense against tumors. So potential for immunotherapy of cancer. So our body, as I have mentioned earlier, that it is fighting on daily basis 24/7. We don't even know that these molecules are fighting. So in our body there is a very intricate balance between pro-apoptosis and apoptosis proteins, right? So we'll discuss apoptosis in the later slides, but basically what I mean to say is, so there are protein components which are trying to keep the cell alive beyond its natural time period. On the other hand, there are certain proteins which want to erase this cell because it is like the time of the cell is here. Whatever the purpose this cell was supposed to serve, it has already served. So now it needs to go so that new and better new cells can come and they can play their role. So this is not a work of only one protein, like one protein in A part and one protein in B part. It's a culmination of balance between multiple proteins in A part which wants cell to live, and in the second part the proteins which wants the cell to die. So when this balance becomes off, either the balance can be tipped off from one point or to the another point. In both the cases, the individual suffers consequences. So imagine if the proteins which wants the cell to survive and they are not allowing the cell to die, even though it has already served its purpose, and it is keeping the cell alive and it is asking the cell to grow, divide without any restriction, right? So this condition is what it is called tumor or cancer, right? And imagine now if the balance is tipped off to the other side, when the proteins are asking the cell to die, even though the cell has still some potential, is still serving some purposes, right? In this case, we have autophagy, or there are multiple many neuronal conditions are because of this imbalance between the two sides of the proteins. Okay. Third is control of tissue regeneration and scarring, that is repair of damaged tissues. So this we can see from our own eyes. Whenever you get a wound or whenever you get a scratch or anything, depending upon the depth of the scratch and the wound, that is eventually filled, right? Depending upon how deep it is, it might take some time, but at the end of the day, it tries to regain its original color and texture, like of the skin. So this is again a very intricate balance between your immune system, because whenever you have a scratch, your insides are exposed to the outside, and outside, everywhere there are many microbes which are there, which are sitting on your surface of your skin as well, but they are not able to go inside. just because you have a very thick skin, at least for them, right? So whenever you are exposing your insides to the outside, these cells come into picture. They play a very crucial role in making sure that your wound is closed, there is no infection, and if there is infection, it is cleared before time, and the wound is filled, and there is minimal scarring as well. Whenever there is misplacement of any of these steps, like in wound healing there are 4 to 5 broad steps which allows the scar to be filled and with minimal scarring on the surface. But whenever there is imbalance of any commodity, the scarring, so you might see some people who have skin which get very easily scarred, and there are, on the other hand, there are people, if they get any wound and when they heal, when the wound is healed, there is very minimal scarring. You won't be able to tell that there was some wound earlier, right? So it all depends upon the intricate dance between the immune cells and how it is repairing the wound at the end of the day. Fourth importance of the immune system is cell injury and pathogenic inflammation. So what it means by cell injury and pathologic inflammation is immune responses are the cause of allergic, autoimmune, and other inflammatory diseases, and for some of the harmful consequences of infection, right? So this is pretty self-explanatory. Basically, whenever a microbe enters our system, right, there will be certain things, or again reaction which I am saying, right? So suppose something foreign comes into our body, so our body needs to act against it now. So if any stranger comes to your house, you're gonna act against it, right? First you need to check whether the stranger is actually a stranger, first thing. Second, when the stranger enters, you need to check whether this stranger is dangerous or not. Third, you need to report it to your parents that a stranger has come to your house, right? So all these things are very basic. Similar things, this is what our immune system also does. So whenever some foreign particle or something enters, it uses all these signs, that is allergy, autoimmunity, inflammatory, to let the system know that something has entered in our system which we are not aware of that what it is. We can deal with it later, but first we need to tell that, oh, something and some foreign material has entered. And how you can tell? By showing reactions such as allergy, such as autoimmunity, such as inflammation of the site, and all these things. Okay, last but not the least, recognition of and injury of tissue grafts and newly introduced proteins. Immune responses are barriers to transplantation and gene therapy. Having immune system is good, right? It is far better than not having an immune system, as we can see in the AIDS patient. But as the medicine is progressing, even the protection which our body provides is proving to have some unforeseen implications of having that system, right? So imagine, since birth you have few sets of organs with yourself. Due to some unforeseen things, one of your organ is not working properly, right? Or some accident or something has happened. Now with the help of medicine nowadays, you can get another organ, right? You can replace that organ. But now imagine the body which knew that, oh, this is my organ, is now suddenly seeing another same organ but is not yet same for it, right? So it will try to act against it. Now it's a good thing and a bad thing. Good thing because we need immunity to survive, we need immunity to live, we need immunity to fight on daily infections, right, and daily things. But this ability of our body is posing an hindrance in the medical intervention of making our lives less sufferable at the end of the day. So everything has two sides, right? At the end of the day, so everything is good, everything is nice, but the moment you want to improve your life, it is posing some hindrance in it. Okay, now we'll see what infection and immunity is. So, the most important physiologic function of the immune system is to prevent and eradicate infections. This we have made pretty sure since the introduction itself, right? The whole existence of immune system is there to either prevent the infection in the first place, and if it is not able to prevent it, eradicate it as soon as possible. Okay? Individuals with defective immune responses are at increased risk for serious, often life threatening infections. The primary example will be AIDS, as I mentioned earlier. The secondary example is, you all might have seen, is in the COVID-19 numbers, the patients who were suffering. You know, people were saying that the old age people or the 60 plus or 50 plus age group is more susceptible to COVID-19 infection, right? Why it was like this? Why 18 or 25-year-old people are not at risk in comparison to 50-year people who are at greater risk? Similar goes to a lower age bracket, such as below 10 years or below 8 years. These children were also more susceptible to COVID-19. So the reason, the borderline, or say the root cause of it, was the immune system itself. So if we talk about kids, their immune system is not well regulated, not well formed, they are still in developing phase, right? When we are talking about people who are above 50, 55 or 60, their immune system is depleting, right? Their immune system is not strong as it used to be. That is why these both age groups were at high risk for the COVID-19 infection. Conversely, stimulating immune responses against microbes through vaccination is the most effective method for protecting individuals against infections. This approach has led to the worldwide eradication of smallpox, the only disease that has been eliminated from civilization by human intervention. So, even if you are not aware of it, because obviously this case was there in 1975 to 80. Yeah, if I'm correct, I'm not sure with the number, but yeah. So in 1975 to 1980, smallpox was completely eradicated. It was a very deadly disease. It used to affect every single individual. It's an infectious disease, which means if someone has got it, and people who are around them will definitely gonna get that. With the help of vaccinations and with the help of immunology, because we understood how the infections are occurring, how basically our body is equipped in dealing with these infections, we made some vaccinations. We gave these vaccinations to healthy individuals. As a result, these individuals never had any incident of smallpox in their entire life, meaning the smallpox was finally eradicated. Similar case can be done for polio now. Okay, as you might be aware that we are all from India, you remember Do Boond Zindagi Ke, the same thing was, which was also discussed in the course lectures. So this was an initiative by the government to eradicate polio completely. And how we can completely eradicate something? By vaccinating mass population. And if we know the vaccination works, right, there's a whole load of things goes behind the vaccine design, the approval of vaccine, and then finally administering the vaccine, right? So once all these checkpoints are crossed, we have vaccine, then we are able to protect majority of the population from these infections, which were at the end of the day. So why we want to basically remove the infection, right? Like, you have infection, just like fever. Imagine if you have a fever, you have fever for few days, you are not taking any particular medicine, it will go automatically, because that is why your immune system is there, right? Your immune system is already existing. So if you get any infection, your immune system is acting against it. So in a while you will be fine. But why we need vaccinations? So one of the major reason why we need vaccination is that these diseases were not, what to say, they were basically reducing the longevity as well as the quality of life. If you have seen, or you can just go to Google or YouTube, you can see polio patients, the whole quality of life is declined just because a small microbe was in their system and it let their body take over, and the body was not able to fight completely. It affected the body, and now their whole life is affected because of that, right? So the reason we want maximum number of people to have vaccination is to basically prevent oneself as well as the population. First thing, this will lead to a better quality of life as well as the longevity. Okay. So what is the effectiveness of vaccine? So as I have already mentioned about the smallpox and say polio, this is just some raw data. I think the latest is 2019. Yeah. So this is quite latest data, as you can see that in, for example, these are the diseases, and you can see how drastically the numbers have declined in the occurrence of these diseases. So for example, if we talk about diphtheria, in 1921 it was in lakhs, then now in 2019 only 2 such cases are reported. Then we go to polio, right? It was 20,000, around 20,000 in 1952, and zero, as I have said, it's a completely eradicated, so 0 cases were reported. If we talk about COVID-19 here, you can see that the death of people who tested positive per 1 lakh people, you can see in unvaccinated it is 1.3, right? 1.3 diseases, deaths, sorry. On the other hand, if the population was vaccinated, only 0.1 of every 1 lakh people were dying because of COVID-19. So you can see how effective the vaccine policy, the administration of vaccine, and how well we make vaccine by understanding how our immune system works is basically that only, right? I don't think so. None of you will disagree that the whole business or the whole model of vaccine is basically using our own immune system's understanding, how our immune system acts, right? And by utilizing that information, we are making vaccines. Okay. So now we are going little bit deeper into the immunity aspect. So the stages of host defense: innate and adaptive immunity. You guys have heard these terms a lot. If you have gone through the lectures, then also these topics were dealt with utmost care and maximum understanding. So I will also try to give you some different perspective and different way of understanding the same thing. Okay. So defense against infections is provided by the early reactions of innate immunity and later more powerful reactions of adaptive immunity. Even if you have not, even if this is the first time you are hearing these terms, but just by sole term itself you can understand that innate means which is already there, which is inherited. Okay. And adaptive means you have adapted that part, you have taken from outside. Okay. So what this statement says is basically how the defense system of our body works is, first, the defense against any infection will be by innate immunity, and later the more powerful it will be by adaptive immunity. Okay. So let's try to understand this in a better way. So imagine you are hungry, you want to cook something, you are very hungry, right? So if you are very very hungry, will you go and make some lavish dish for yourself, or will you just make some DIY sort of snack for yourself and then you will eat it to satisfy your hunger, right? Now imagine, you know that there are guests coming and this has already been planned for months. So now in this case, will you just make DIY snacks or will you make intricate, lavish dishes which incorporate lots of cooking, lots of flavor profiles, lot of thinking of what to cook and all those things, right? So the same principle applies here as well. When the first infection comes, our body will do whatever it has to protect, to dismiss that infection first thing, or to eradicate that infection. It is not going to think whether this infection is A type, B type, C type, or what it is, right? When it has controlled the infection in the first place, now we need specific things against the specific infection which has come. So imagine a microbe has come into our system. The innate immunity will do everything which it has against this A microbe. After it has controlled the number of these A microbes, it will let the system know and say ki, see, hey, A type of microbe is here. We have tried controlling it, but we can only reduce the number, but we are not able to control it. So now what the adaptive system will do is, adaptive system will say, oh, it's A type of microorganism. Okay, so I need A prime sort of actions against this A type of microbe, which means it will be very specific, and if it is specific, it will ultimately be more powerful and effective against controlling the infection. Okay, so this is the brief overview of what innate immunity is and what adaptive immunity is. Whatever I have told you, they have then their own specific terms. For example, innate immunity will be called non-specific immunity, because innate immunity doesn't care whether it's A type of microbe, B type of microbe, or C type of infection. Okay, while adaptive immunity, it cares whether it is A type of infection, B type of infection, or C type of infection. Hence it is specific immunity. Okay, so all these terms can be then put on these type of immunities. If we briefly see what innate immunity or natural or native immunity is. First, present in all healthy individuals at all times, which means it is 24/7 hours active, it is always there. Since your birth, you have innate immunity. Okay. First line of defense, that is, it blocks microbial entry and eliminates invaders rapidly. So if you remember, when we talking about the immune system, what is the role of immune system? The role of immune system is either prevent or eradicate, right? So the branch of immune system which deals in prevention and later elimination of the infection is the first line of defense provided by the innate immunity or the natural immunity or the native immunity. Okay, provides immediate response upon infection, right? So your innate immunity won't care what has come. It just knows that something foreign has entered in our system and we need to do something. Okay, does not require prior exposure to pathogens. So what do we mean by does not require prior exposure to pathogens? As I have mentioned in your in the example which I gave. So if you are hungry, you want to like just eat because you are like completely like running here and there because of hunger. So would you care if X thing is present or not, or Y thing is present or not? You'll do, and you'll just take everything which is there with you, right? You won't be very choosy about things because you are just hungry right now. You are not eating for taste, you are not eating for pleasure, you are just eating for the sake of satiating your hunger, right? So that's why innate immunity, if anything comes, it doesn't care. Whatever it has, it will do to curb this infection. Last but not the least, evolutionary older defense mechanism. So why we are saying that innate immunity is older defense mechanism? Because it is innate in nature. It is already present. It has always been present in us. So adaptation, so now imagine the population, the earlier population, which faced smallpox or which faced polio, right, or which faced COVID-19 for that matter. So these people had innate immunity in them. Then they had adaptive immunity for these microbes. But now, our generation, we have not seen smallpox, we have not seen polio, and our future generation hopefully won't see COVID-19. So why should our body know about such microorganisms? Because for us, they never existed. But our innate immune system will be there. But the action against these diseases will not be there in our system, making innate immunity older defense mechanism in comparison to the adaptive immunity. Talking about adaptive immunity, specific immunity or acquired immunity. Activated after exposure to microbes, right? So here the microbe entered, innate immunity tried to hold it, and in the meantime also reported to the adaptive system ki see, this is what we got, we don't know what it is, something entered, but here see what it is. Okay, now the adaptive immune branch is saying, oh okay, let me see what it is. So it is activating only when the microbe is showed to the adaptive immunity. It was not already there, it came after the microbe was presented. Okay, requires proliferation and differentiation of lymphocytes. So as it was not always present, it was not always there, so now you need soldiers to curb this new pathogen which has entered, which now the adaptive system knows. Okay, highly specific to the invading pathogen. So see, differentiation, proliferation, all these are very energy intensive processes. So our body will try not to not to expense any energy which is not required at the end of the day, right? So it will only be active, and active against only the thing it is seeing. Hence it is very specific. It is not gonna differentiate or proliferate cells which are identifying any other pathogen which the system has not seen. Okay, then involves immunologic memory, that is stronger response to re-exposure. We're gonna see this. So there's a graph, if you guys have gone through the lectures, so you know which graph I'm talking about. We'll see in the coming slides as well. So they take few days to develop, same thing, it is referring to that particular graph as well. So more specialized and potent due to clonal expansion and effector diversity. All these points are just suggesting that adaptive immunity is very specific. So you know, the stranger was like has entered your house in the previous example I'm trying to connect. So now you know that this is a stranger. This stranger has a knife. Okay, so now what will you do? So you want to inform your parents. So now your parents will make a decision based upon the level of danger. So example, if this stranger has a knife or whether this stranger has a gun. If this stranger has a gun, your parents are not gonna, or any policeman or any security personnel, not gonna fight with them with their bare hands, right? They need their own specialized weapons to deal with such culprits, right? So it's very specific. So the security personnel or the police, they will also be having gun, ideally more advanced than the one which this stranger possesses. And now imagine if this stranger has knife, then you're not gonna call the army with the tank. You need a person, or you need a security personnel who can fight with a person who has knife, right? So the specificity lies in the type of microorganism our adaptive system is seeing. Okay. So what are the components of innate and adaptive immunity? Till now, what we have understood, we said immunity is our body's ability to prevent and eradicate infection. Okay. Now then we studied about the type of infections. There are two branches of immune system: innate immunity and adaptive immunity. In innate immunity, it is always present. It doesn't care which microorganism or which infection is coming. On the other hand, adaptive immunity is very specific and it cares what sort of microbe is entering. Okay. Now we are talking about the system itself. So when we say innate immunity, as I have mentioned, innate immunity will be by system, because it's a group of cells which are making the system. So what are the components which makes the innate immunity? So few these are the major ones. We're gonna talk about them in details in the coming lectures. So in the innate immunity, imagine this is the microbe. Okay. This microbe is settled on your skin. Okay. Just below the skin we have mast cells, we have phagocytes, we have dendritic cells, we have complement system, and we have NK cells. Okay. So these are the cells and the proteins which basically make up the innate immunity. When we talk about adaptive immunity, so in adaptive immunity, when innate immunity says ki, see, hey, I got this microbe, I'll try to capture it, try to keep it with me, but in the meantime you should also see what this microbe is, because I don't know which microbe is this. So when it is giving to the adaptive system, then the B lymphocyte and the T lymphocyte work in conjunction to see first which type of microbe is this. Then they say, oh, this has surface representation of such proteins. Now when such proteins are there, it will proliferate and differentiate cells which are abundant in such type of receptors or proteins which are identifying this microbe. And then at the end of the day, these antibodies will be released, and it can be there to either neutralize or basically capture the infection at some place. When we talk about T lymphocyte, then T cells and T lymphocytes are saying, oh, it is showing such type of protein, we will differentiate cells which can identify this type of protein, and at the end of the day we gonna curb the infection. So the components of innate immunity includes mast cell, phagocytes, dendritic, NK cells, and complement system. The part of adaptive immunity, which makes the adaptive immune system, basically has B lymphocytes, T lymphocytes, effector T cells, and plasma cells. This is just the overview. You also know, if you have seen the this week's lecture, that's not this simple, but this is how we gonna start our immunology course. So we'll see through the bird's eye view what are the components, and then we'll go into these components one by one. Okay. So again, now this was the overall view of the component system, components of immunity. Now we'll see first the components of innate immunity. So what is innate immunity? Remember, it is the native or natural immunity. It is always present, it is not specific, and it just goes and attack whatever is coming or whatever is foreign. It doesn't care what is coming. Okay, it has no role in identifying which sort of microbe is there. Okay, so innate immunity is the first line of defense. So epithelial barriers, that is skin and your mucosal tissues, are part of innate immunity. Antimicrobial substances from the epithelial cells. So there are few cells on our skin which secrete such components which doesn't allow microbes to stick to our skin for long. Okay. Then resident immune cells in under epithelia such as mast cell, as we have seen here, mast cell, phagocytes, dendritic cells. Okay. Then what is the function of first line of defense? So it is the block, that is the preventive function of the immune system. Okay. Then the second line of defense is, so now imagine first line of defense, and first line comes from the innate immunity. Now imagine even with the first line of defense, the microbe is able to go through this first line. Then comes the second line of defense. Okay. The second line of defense will be, oh, the microbe has come. Now the innate immunity, which is non-specific, it will just eat up the microbe, right? So that process is called phagocytosis. And the cells which perform phagocytosis, they are called neutrophils and macrophages. Then plasma proteins, including the complement system. We're gonna read about all these things in very detail in the coming week's lecture. Okay, so don't worry about if these things you are not aware of. We're gonna discuss everything. It is just the overall view of innate immunity. So first line of defense, if first line of defense is not successful, then in the second line of defense we have phagocytic cells, we have plasma proteins, complement system. So basically it is destroying the microbes which has entered. They are trying their best to destroy the microbes which has passed the first line of defense. Now some additional roles which are there for the innate immunity is, it triggers adaptive immune response, right? So as I have mentioned, I think someone has question. Yes, please kindly unmute yourself and ask. Whoever has raised their hand. If not, I'm gonna move forward. So as you can see, the first line of defense was majorly towards preventive side of the immune response. The second line of defense is majorly towards the eradication of the infection, or eradication side of the immune response. Okay. And some additional roles, because again you cannot summarize how vast the immune system or the innate immunity works. So this is just the very surface level view of things. Okay. So some additional roles include triggers adaptive immune responses. Yes, please, whoever has raised their hand can ask the question. Yeah. Okay. Hmm? I hope I'm audible. There was some issue with respect to the connection, so let me share my screen again. Yeah, so if I remember correctly, lastly we were talking about a question that how the microbe basically interacts with the immune response. Yeah, how it interacts with the immune response when it crosses the first line of barrier. So as you see here, these are the cells which are the major components of the innate immunity, right? So the first barrier was this epithelial cell itself. Now imagine if the microbe has entered inside the epithelial cell. Now it will encounter these wide varieties of cells which are sitting there, and they are just searching for anything which is foreign. Okay, and these cells are part of innate immunity. They are the ones which are making the innate immune system. So we're gonna discuss all these things and role of each and every cell in the later classes. So, but for now, imagine. So there's a it's a room, and there's a door. So you are outside the door. You cannot penetrate inside the door. You cannot go inside the door. Till then, you are safe, but you desperately want to go inside the door, and somehow you managed to go inside the door. Now imagine if this house is not yours and you are a thief. So if they have a dog inside the room, so the moment you open the door, you move inside the room, the dog will bark at you, the dog will run after you, right? Irrespective of whether the dog knows you or doesn't know you, if you're covered in all those, like, keeping all these nitty gritties aside, right? So the moment anything enters from the first line of defense, these cells are ready to, like, they are ready and they are actively searching for things which are not from their own system. Okay, I hope I am able to answer your question. Yeah. So the additional roles of innate immunity includes triggers adaptive immune response, right? So as since the beginning I am saying, we might first understand innate immunity and then we gonna understand adaptive immunity, but it doesn't mean that they are separate. They are working together. So the link between innate immunity and adaptive immunity is, innate immunity doesn't care who is coming. Adaptive immunity needs to be told that someone has come. Okay, so this role is also done by the innate immunity, because innate immunity is the first thing which is encountering microbe. So it is its duty, innate immune system duty, to let the adaptive immune system know that something has entered. Another additional role of innate immunity is recognizes, one minute. So it recognizes limited shared microbial structures, that is pathogen associated molecular patterns, or PAMs. So this we will see in the coming slides, but just to have little bit of basic understanding. So when I am saying that innate immune system is seeing that someone has entered, right? As you can see, this is a microbe, it is sitting very well on the skin, but somehow it entered. Now you can see that in these phagocytic cells, the microbe is inside the cell. So how come this cell, which was actively searching for anything which is foreign, knows that this is foreign, right? So it knows by that, oh, this person is wearing something different on its surface, which I have never seen, and hence I don't know what it is, and it's a foreign material. So the thing which is there on the surface of microbe, which the cell sees, are called pathogen associated molecular patterns, or PAMs. It is like a name tag, or say your clothes. If you are if you go in a foreign country and imagine you are dressing up in a funny way, right? People will see you like that person, that, oh, they are just here for fun and all. Imagine then you are wearing some very sophisticated clothes and all those things, then people will see you as, oh, they are sophisticated, they are well mannered, they are educated, and all those things. So how they are judging you? Completely based upon how you are presenting yourself. So your clothes in this case will be called as pathogen associated molecular patterns, or PAMs. Okay. The adaptive immune response is mediated by lymphocytes with highly diverse and variable receptors for foreign substances, and the product of these cells such as antibodies and other proteins. Again, it's the same thing. Here we are talking about adaptive immune system. Till here we talked about innate immunity, that the first line of defense, then second line of defense, then additional factors. Now the moment additional factors come, now we are talking about adaptive immunity. So for adaptive immunity, as in innate immunity, we had these type of cells. In adaptive immunity, we have lymphocytes, B lymphocyte, T lymphocytes, but at the end of the day they are lymphocytes, or the cells which are making the adaptive immune system. Okay, so adaptive immunity, some of the key features include essential for defense against pathogens that evade innate immunity. Correct? So imagine first line of defense was crossed, then it entered inside our body. Now even imagine, as second line of defense or the innate immunity is not specific, some microbes might evade the innate immunity, right? Because only one microbe is not entering, multiple microbes are entering. So even if the innate immunity is able to say capture 10 microbes, the 11th or the 12th microbe will evade the innate immunity. But in the meantime, innate immunity has already told adaptive immunity that, see, this is the type of microbe I have with me. Correct? Then the adaptive immunity is learning the behavior of this microbe. So only when the adaptive immunity will be expressed when the innate immunity is telling the adaptive that something is there. So it is essential for defense against pathogens that evade innate immunity. Lymphocytes express specific receptors to detect microbial and non-microbial molecules. Okay, again these we are talking about self and non-self. Recognizes a wide range of antigens. Now we are talking about antigens. What are antigens? Antigens are the foreign bodies, are the foreign bodies or the part of pathogen which are producing the infection or producing the reaction and taking the reaction from our body. So antigen is any molecule specifically recognized by lymphocyte or antibodies. They are causing the reaction from us, from our body. Okay. So some types of adaptive immunity means. Let me brief here because things are getting little complicated from now onwards, and my aim throughout of this course will be to give you the bird's eye view of things so that you can learn and understand things at better. So firstly, what we said is immune system has two arms, innate immunity and adaptive immunity. Innate immunity is when something enters and it will tell the other responsible person that something has entered. When we were talking about innate immunity, we said these are the type of components which make the innate system, right? Now we are talking about adaptive immunity. In adaptive immunity, these are the components which are making the adaptive immunity. But when we see adaptive immunity from the component point of view, we have two major components, right? Now we are seeing adaptive immunity on the basis of how it is providing the adaptive nature of the immunity. Okay, so there are majorly two types of adaptive immunity called humoral immunity and cell mediated immunity. Mediated by different cells and molecules that provide defense against microbes in different locations. Just give me 1 minute. Yeah. So how we gonna understand this? So humoral immunity, as you can see in this pictorial representation of humoral immunity, is basically when extracellular microbes, that is which survives outside host cells and are readily destroyed when they are ingested by phagocytosis, are combated by antibodies. Microbes that have evolved to survive inside host cells, either in phagocytic vesicles or in the cytosol, are eradicated by the action of T lymphocytes. So let me try to simplify this. So humoral immunity, as the name suggests, means in the blood. Humoral is the liquid part or the blood. So there are microbes which do not enter inside any cell. They survive outside the cell. When they are not inside the cell and outside the cell, the branch of adaptive immunity which deals with such microbes is called humoral type of adaptive immunity. Okay? When the microbe enters inside the cell and survives inside the cell, either in any organelle or even in the cytosol of the cell, when that microbe is dealt with the branch of adaptive immunity, that is called cell mediated immunity. Okay, this is the basic difference. So innate immunity will tackle anything which is coming and will inform the adaptive immunity. Now adaptive immunity have to see whether the microbe which innate immunity has presented is outside the cell or inside the cell. If it is outside the cell, the branch of adaptive immunity which is dealing with such microbes will be called humoral immunity. If the microbe is surviving inside the cell, such branch of adaptive immunity will be called cell mediated immunity. Okay, so we are not going deep into this pictorial representation because we're gonna see all these things in very detail in the coming lectures, but we're gonna read some material about this now. Okay. Excuse me. So the humoral immunity is mediated by proteins called antibodies, which are produced by cells called B lymphocytes. So try to connect this. B lymphocyte is a component of adaptive immunity. And specially what sort of adaptive immunity? Humoral type of adaptive immunity. Okay. Secreted antibodies enter the circulation, extracellular tissue fluid, and lumens of mucosal organs such as gastrointestinal and respiratory tracts. Now see, all these things are outside the cell, which means what we are talking about? We are talking about adaptive immunity, which is dealing with microbes which are not entering inside any cell. Okay. Antibodies defend against microbes present in these locations by preventing them from infecting tissue cells and by neutralizing toxins made by the microbes. Antibodies also enhance the uptake of extracellular microbes into phagocytes, resulting in the killing of the pathogen. So what it is saying? So a microbe has entered in our system, crossing the first line of defense, crossing the second line of defense. Now it is told by the innate immunity that, see, adaptive system, I have this microbe which is not inside the cell but outside the cell. Okay. What will happen? B lymphocyte will come and it will see that what type of microbe is this. It will see that it has these type of clothes on it. Then it will make more such proteins which are anti such clothes, which are very complement to the clothes which this microbe is wearing, and in this case the proteins which this microbe is expressing. Once it has enough of such proteins on these B lymphocytes, these B lymphocytes will secrete these proteins, right? And once these proteins are, as you can see, it is called antibody. Once antibodies are released, they basically prevent infection and eliminate extracellular microbes. So here is a whole process. So this is just an overview. So how they are eliminating, how they are preventing the infection. All these will come in the coming lectures. Okay, so they were, if you have seen the lectures, you know that there are neutralizing, opsonization, component or component activation. These are types of things which antibodies do, and antibodies are a type of adaptive immunity, especially a type of humoral active adaptive immunity. Okay. In addition, antibodies are transported through the placenta into the fetal circulation and protect the fetus as newborn from infection. This we all know that this is a type of immunity which is passed from mother to the newborn kid. Okay. So now we are talking about cell mediated immunity. Till now we'll try to summarize. So what we did, we said this is innate immunity, this is adaptive immunity. In innate immunity, if some organisms are not captured by the innate immunity tells the adaptive immunity ki see, such things has entered. Okay. Then adaptive immunity, now it has to decide whether the microbe which just entered is inside the cell or outside the cell. If it is outside the cell, it will activate B lymphocyte system, and ultimately it will secrete antibodies which will lead to the killing of this microbe by n number of ways. We have not yet discussed those ways. Okay. Now we are, and this is called humoral immunity. Okay. Now we are talking about cell mediated adaptive immunity. Cell mediated immunity, that is, it defends against microbes that have entered host cells. Okay, as mentioned excuse me, as mentioned here, cell mediated immunity is when the microbe is not outside the cell, now it has entered the cell. Now what adaptive immunity does. Okay. So in adaptive immunity, when the microbe has entered inside the cell, it is basically done by T lymphocytes, right? So here the two components were B lymphocyte and T lymphocyte. Now we are talking about T lymphocytes here. Critical for intracellular pathogens, example viruses, bacteria and other pathogens. What are the limitations of antibodies? It prevents microbial entry but ineffective once microbe enters host cell. So imagine a microbe was already outside, it has not yet entered inside the cell, right? So antibody can easily be released and it can kill the microbe at the end of the day. But what antibodies cannot do is, it cannot go inside the cell and then kill the microbe, right? So that this is one of the way we need cell mediated immunity, and antibodies are not enough for that. Okay. Then what are the types of T lymphocytes? So first is helper T cell, that is TH, and second is cytotoxic T cells, that is TC, like we generally write TC or CTLs. Helper T cells, they produce cytokines, activate phagocytosis to destroy ingested microbes in intracellular vesicles, also recruit phagocytes to infection sites to combat extracellular microbes. Okay, so now here we are talking about how innate immunity and adaptive immunity are talking with each other. Okay. Till here, the function of innate immunity was to tell the adaptive immune system that something has entered. Now here, when the microbe is inside the cell, now antibodies are not working enough. They are not efficient because they cannot enter inside the cell and kill the microbe. For that, what we need is T lymphocytes. There are two different types of T lymphocytes, major two different types of T lymphocytes. First is helper T cell. So what exactly helper T cell is doing is that when the microbe has entered, see, microbe has already entered inside the cell. Now the helper T cell will see that what has come inside the cell. the microbe which entered inside the cell, it will the cell will show something on their surface to let other cells show that something is wrong with this cell. That expression of things is recognized by helper T cell. Okay, once that abnormality is detected by helper T cell, the helper T cell will signal cytokines, it will recruit cytokines on the infected cell. Okay, and now this infected cell will undergo what to say, it will be digested or destroyed at the end of the day along with the microbe. So this is a very layman overview of helper T cell function. Okay, now if we talk about TC or cytotoxic T lymphocyte, then what happens is the microbe is inside the cell already. The same thing will be there, that there will be some things on this cell which is not normal, which is not on the regular cell. This will be detected by the TC cell or the cytotoxic T cell. Ultimately, the cytotoxic T cell itself will kill the infected cell. It won't ask any cytokines to come from outside and do the work. It itself will kill the cell which is infected. Okay, so for today's discussion we are keeping it here, like till here. We might start with core adaptive immunity in the next class, that will be on the Sunday itself. So let me revise what we have understood till now, so that we both know, like we all know, that we are on the same page. Innate immunity is where the cells or the components of the innate immune system doesn't care what has come. They are prepared to capture anything. Once they capture it, some of them might evade from the innate immunity. In the process, when the innate system is dealing with the infection, in the meanwhile it will also let the adaptive system know that something has come. Now the adaptive system will see what has come. If it is a microbe or an infection or a pathogen or an antigen which is not entering inside the cell, right? So imagine if this microbe, this particular one, enters inside the cell, it can easily be digested by lysozymes and all those things, right? Our internal cells also has those systems, but they are smart, they are not entering inside the cell. So our immune system is smarter. We are dealing with them in the outside itself. We are not letting them come inside and be dealt with the lysozymes or lysosomes. Okay, so if it is not entering inside the cell, it is dealt with with the in the extracellular places by antibodies. It will be destroyed via antibodies. But if the microbe is smart and it knows how to enter inside the cell and hide inside the cell, even then our immune system has things to do and has proper procedure in place. So in that case, T lymphocyte system or the cell mediated immunity will be taking place. Even in cell mediated immunity, or when T lymphocytes are involved, there are two types of T lymphocytes or T cells: helper T cell and cytotoxic T cell. If the microbe enters into the into the cell or the macrophage, or it has phagocytized by the macrophages, it will basically identify the receptors on this macrophage. It will guide the cytokines on this cell and help killing this cell or digesting this cell, leading to the destruction of the microbes which were there inside. If the microbe is inside the cell and it is showing different type of receptor on this infected cell, which will be detected by the cytotoxic T cell. Once it detects, when the TC cell detects such a signal from the infected cell, it will directly kill the infected cell, leading to the non increase in the infection, or not it is not letting the infection spread. At the end of the day, all these are adaptive immune system. two branches of adaptive immunity is, once it is not inside the cell called humoral immunity, and once it is inside the cell called cell mediated immunity. Okay, I hope till here you guys are with me and you can understand the major components of immune system. If I ask you that I'm talking about T helper cell or cytotoxic T cell, so you know it is a part of adaptive immunity. But what sort of adaptive immunity? Is it humoral immunity or is it cell mediated immunity? When I'm talking about antibodies, is it part of innate immunity or active or adaptive immunity? Okay, so these things should be clear in your head. If not, feel free to ask me questions in the next class if you want, or I'll share my email ID as well, so that you guys can just drop me a mail. Okay, you can always ask me question in the next lecture, and in the slides when I'm gonna upload the slide, I'll put my email ID there, so you can always ask. Second, my recommendation will be to follow the lecture slides. It will help you in coming and taking the live discussion classes. And I hope the pace was fine. I hope that I'm trying to get at the very bottom of things so that majority of you can understand, because I don't know much about you guys, like what sort of bunch of good people I have with me. So I'm keeping things very simple right now, and I'm trying to get to imprint these terminologies in your head, so that when you hear such things you can relate to the branches of immune system which we have discussed till now. Okay, so if you have any question, you can ask me here in the chat. I guess, oh, people have sent me things. Okay, sorry, I was not able to chat earlier. Let me see. Oh, but okay, so I hope Janki was there in the lecture. I was accepting requests throughout the lectures as well. Is it the inflammatory inducer that activate the sensor cells, which in turn release mediators that trigger the activation of the immune response? Okay, so this is a part of what to say. So inflammation, see till now what terminologies we have used, right? So inflammation is your body's reaction. When inflammation comes, so there are cytokines which leads to the inflammation. So what are those cytokines? It can be interferon gamma, it can be IL-6. All these things are associated with inflammation. When inflammation occurs, the cell itself secretes some signals which leads to the which informs the surrounding cells that something is wrong here with me. And then again, the whole system of adaptive immunity is based on that. So if this cell is secreting a signal of inflammation, then what will happen? These signal will be detected by the cytokines in the nearby cells. These cytokines will migrate towards this infected cell. When these cytokines come here, then again it will change the transcription or the proteomics of the cell. It will lead to the different expression of proteins or the receptors on the surface. As a result, T cells, either it can be cytotoxic, it can be TC or TH or T regulated. There are n number of T cells, but majorly TC and TH. Based on the type of signal they are having, these cells will be activated. So as we have not yet discussed how exactly inflammation works, I am trying to keep it simple. Gradually we gonna see how inflammation, or say how the release of say P53 or the release of component system help us in basically choosing which branch of adaptive system gonna be activated at the end of the day. The overall aim will always be eradicate the cell which is infected. You cannot save the cell. You can try to save the cell by phagocytosis or by killing the microbe when it has not yet entered inside the cell, but the overall aim remains same, that we need to kill the cell which has infection, so that that infection should not be uh, spread more. Okay, so we'll discuss this. I don't know who has asked this question. Rajan, huh? Yeah. What is the key difference between innate and humoral immunity? Because both are preventing entry of no. So humoral immunity is adaptive immunity. Adaptive immunity is only activated when the microbe has already entered inside our body, but it has not yet reached inside the cell. On the other hand, innate immunity is when innate immunity is preventing the entry of microbe from outside, from the environment inside our body. Once it has entered inside our body, just for example, what are the major ways through which infection can enter? It can enter via eyes, like these are the mucosal things, right? Eyes, ears, nose, nasal passage, mouth, hand, skin, feet, nails, all these things. So just below the epithelium cells or your dermis, the innate part of cells are active there. If they can control this, though the microbe has entered inside system, but it has not yet reached the circulatory system. Once it has reached the circulatory system, the innate immunity failed. The second line of defense was not able to prevent, but was trying to control the infection. Now it is the part of humoral immunity to eradicate the infection, so that it cannot stay in the circulatory system, as well as it should not enter inside the cell. Okay. So just go through these slides, as well as go through the week lecture. We can discuss questions in the next class as well. Okay, so what is the okay, great. So I hope I will see you everyone in the next class. Hope you enjoyed learning. Thank you so much for your time and patience. Bye bye.